Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We are here at DragonCon 2024 in downtown Atlanta. I could not be more excited to be here. This is probably one of my favorite cons. It is known as the Mardi Gras of the cons, and for good reason. I think half of you are already drunk. And if you're not, you're going to be soon. Maybe you know what? You would, if you want, you drink now. If you brought it, toss it back. It'll make you a better audience member, I promise. Today's guest, you have seen him in such movies as The Way Back and You, Me, and Dupree. You've also seen him on television in 12 Monkeys, and more recently, Star Trek Picard. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my friend Todd Stashwick.
I'm egregiously underdressed for this podcast.
Well, I
just look so nice.
I figured if I'm gonna host, I need to.
I'm dressed for radio. Oh.
Hey, man.
Hi, man.
Good to see you.
A couple of captains.
You're one of those people in this crazy thing that we do in this con world that I know that I can always go have a drink with you, and
Yes.
it's going to be a great conversation.
We do dive deep over whiskey. Last time was in Germany, I think.
Was that?
Yeah.
Where did we go out?
FedCon. No, we stayed at the hotel and
right.
we had some Kentucky
That
bourbon.
poorly stocked bar.
Right, but I found the good one. And like the bourbon, because it's not something they serve there.
No.
It was like 3 bottles back covered in dust. So I'm like, hand it over. So yeah, we were able to dive into that bottle. And,
That's right. I met your lovely wife.
You met my
She
wife?
was great.
Thank you.
How did you guys meet?
So, I was a performer at Second City in Chicago doing sketch comedy and improv
That's right.
in the early 90s. And one Christmas, the main stage cast were like, why do the Jewish people get their holidays off, but we don't get ours? And so the producers there said, okay. And so this is why it's such a twist of fate. So they basically let the main stage cast have the night off. I, at the time, was in a touring company cast. And they're like, you're going to do the show. So you got to work on Christmas, Todd. I'm like, all right. She was in the audience. And the next day I came back to work and she had left a note saying, hi, I live in Maine. I'm just here for the weekend. My cousin, who you know, brought me and my mom to see the show. And I want to know if you have coffee before I leave on Wednesday. And we did have coffee. And then we kissed. And 30 years later, and 2 children, here we are.
Wow. That's I have to say that is a testament to your character. I would have handed that note to security.
I remember her from the audience, though.
Oh, no.
She was the cute 100%. So she was sitting in the audience, and like David Lee Roth, I'm like, checking him out from the stage. And so, you know what I'm saying?
You're not supposed to do that.
Not supposed to do that. Not that I would do anything, but it was just that like, oh, there's a pretty girl like 3 rows back. And then I remember leaving that night, and she was standing at the bottom of the stairs, and we had just like a moment. We met cute. We had a meet cute. And then she got in a car and drove away. And I'm like, well, that's that. Lo and behold, she left a note the next day.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty cool.
That kind of stuff never happened to me.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was either that or a restraining order, right? So a marriage certificate instead. Yeah. And we have a 26-year-old son and a 16-year-old daughter. And here we are. We're celebrating our 27th wedding anniversary together, 30 years.
Oh, come on. Give it up for that.
Right?
Come on.
Right? And in the like LA years, that's like our 50th.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah. For actors, yeah. Because when I tell people the age of my children, they go, different wives. I'm like, no, they're just spaced a decade apart. Yeah.
Well, so Todd, this is, I always have to sort of introduce people to the show because what we do is a little bit different where we aren't so interested in the sort of the questions you've asked a million
Sure.
times.
He was great to work with.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know how I memorized all those lines. It's more about sort of where you get your creative juice. We've found that those are great stories. And one of our ends, I don't know, we haven't talked about what we're going to talk about. I texted Todd. I said, "What do we talk about?" He's like, "I'm sure it'll be great." Okay, great. Thanks, Todd.
Yeah.
So
Real helpful.
But one of the things, and I know one answer to this, and you know the answer I'm talking about, but I'm wondering if there's any other than the obvious thing that you do for you that is sort of where you go to for your creative juice or to be creative.
Well, the one answer that we're both thinking of is I play a lot of Dungeons and Dragons.
Yes.
Yeah, a lot.
And we'll get to that.
I do everything else in my life so that I can get to the table. But if I'm writing, and I have to solve like a writing problem as a writer creatively, music and the outside.
Mm-hmm.
Like I will put on headphones and I will either get on a bike and go for a ride or just go for a very long walk. And oddly, like when I distract my body with a physical activity, as opposed to sitting there staring at a screen, hoping that providence is going to descend upon me, if I occupy my body by walking or riding, but the music there then, depending on what I'm writing, will sort of soundtrack things, and then you start seeing pictures, and then pictures lead to moments, and moments lead to scenes, and scenes, and often that will untie a problem that I've had as a writer in my head that I was trying to solve that day, and it kind of always works. And I do think it is that physical activity. Like when I write with a partner, I'm pacing the whole time. Like this sitting down does not work. I have to engage myself physically in order to get the juices flowing, as you said.
I totally understand that. I one of the things I do is I go hit golf balls at the driving range.
There you go.
I don't even play a lot of golf, but there's something about that process of getting your body moving that a certain part of your brain has to focus on. It takes away the editor.
I was just going to say that it occupies the judgment.
Yeah.
Because oddly, because I've done a lot of improvisation, and a lot of what we teach is if you engage yourself physically, it shuts off the critic. And so it allows that flow to happen, because that part of the brain where judgment and movement kind of live in the same place, that if you do engage yourself physically, it distracts. It distracts the critic that's living in you, telling you what the work you're doing is bad.
You know, Paul Thomas Anderson says that he drives at night when he's writing. He just takes long drives at night and listens to music, and that's where his soundtracks come from. Those amazing, multi-platinum selling soundtracks come from the song that came on that matched the scene he was thinking about.
It
helped him figure out the scene.
Yeah, it can be serendipitous, right? Yeah. I tend to listen to things without lyrics when I'm writing. More just scores or music, or depending on what I'm writing. I like if words enter in, like I'm like, oh, now I'm processing the words. Except for to that, like I wrote a horror film that was set in rural America in the late 80s. So I was just listening to nothing but Mellencamp. Like that's what fed that vibe of that story. So it all just inspired scenes and vice versa. You're writing too, and then you're letting it inform the vibe of the moment or whatever.
So you're talking about Second City.
Yeah.
To those of you who don't know, in the acting world, when somebody tells you that they were in Second City, that's like being in the military and somebody says, "Oh, I was a Navy SEAL." It really is. It is a rarefied group, and it's one of those things. What you guys do in Second City is what I think scares most actors to death.
That's funny. I was always that kid watching Saturday Night Live and wanting to just grow up and be Bill Murray.
Mm-hmm.
Like my life was like, I want to either be Han Solo or Peter Venkman. And I think I've almost managed it. So then it was like sort of a backwards engineering, like looking at Bill Murray and like what put him there. And he was already a Chicago boy. And so the minute I entered college, I put a pin in after college, I want to do Second City. I want that resume star. I want those skills because I wanted Saturday Night Live. And oddly, the first day of my freshman year of college, I was going to Loyola University at the time, not where I finished, three schools later. They had a live Second City show of a touring company, and I was the kid who walked up to the front of the stage and was like, "How do you get into Second City?" And this woman, Holly Wortell, talented woman, she said, "Get a job there, like waiting tables or tearing tickets, so that you can watch the show night after night."
Oh, that's so smart.
Right, 10,000 hours, and so I was doing that, and then I was also studying with a man named Del Close in Chicago, who taught Belushi and Farley and all of those guys. And so when I moved to Chicago, it was just like a conservatory of improv. Mm-hmm. Early 90s Chicago was this kind of heyday of improv, like great people that I got to work with, Adam McKay, Stephen Colbert, Steve Carell, Tina Fey. They all came out of that era. And I hope things work out for them. But I was the knucklehead that was like, I don't just want to do comedy. I want a much more varied career. Like half my life was doing Dharma and Greg and situation comedy, and the other half is doing like The Riches and Trek and things like that. So I liked living in both worlds, but it makes for a more circuitous route. But back to the Second City, that was my early 20s. Like right out of college, I was in Chicago studying at two different places, waiting tables at two different places. I would sleep in a bar. That sounds awful. I would sleep across the street. I would wait tables in the morning through lunch at this place called Hamburger Hamlet. And then I would go and rest. They would let me sleep in the stall in the bar so that I could wake up and work from 6 to midnight when I wasn't taking classes or doing shows. So it was just that eternal energy combustion you have of youth that kind of kept you going. But yeah, when you had your sights set on like Saturday Night Live, I just wanted to get as much improv in me as possible. And then along the way, fell in love with improv. It wasn't a means to an end anymore. It was like, no, this is an amazing art form.
Did you ever end up auditioning for Saturday Night?
Did.
What was that experience like?
They flew us out in 1995. They flew us out. And I stood where the host does his monologue. If you watch the show, you've seen it. It's on NBC. And I just start naming Terry Sweeney, like the really obscure actors. No, I did. So you stand there in Studio 8H doing I had to do impressions, and I had to do like 3 original characters and 3 impressions, because that show does a lot of like entertainment impressions. So, and I had like a little 8-minute set put together that you would do that. Nobody's in the room. They're all up in a green room watching you close circuit because they want to see how it looks on screen. So you're just doing it to no laughter, no applause.
Oh, God.
You're just sort of doing it. You're just naked, just doing it in front of empty seats. It was very odd, but it was cool.
Yeah.
It was cool.
Sounds like your typical open mic night and
It was.
stand-up comedy. I mean, when you go in,
The hotel, the airport bar.
This is how you train. I did this as a bucket list item. You go to train to do stand-up to hone a set. What you do is you go to a lot of open mic nights, and your audience is other comics are traditionally not happy people. And they're looking at it like a science, right? So they're like, just nothing. But if something works, it works.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I was used to, I had just come off of Second City. Like, so for 5 years, I was like a well-oiled machine of improv at that time, but I'm also used to doing scenes with people. So now I'm having to do characters with nobody to bounce off of and nobody to respond to. So you had to sort of hone your little bits into like one-man show stuff and then string it together, however. And I think it was because it was the mid-90s, my impressions were like Tommy Lee Jones and Paul Reiser and Keanu Reeves and Michael Stipe. Like, it was 95. It was 95. And so, but I strung it together like it was the, Christian Slater, I think I did it as well. But so I strung it together like it was the MTV Music Awards. So each person would introduce the next person. And I didn't get the job. So that's how that worked.
Do you still do any of those impressions?
I probably could, but they're so obscure that nobody would be like, that's a damn fine Paul Reiser. You know? Did you call the guy? Because I was supposed to call the guy. Yeah. Yeah, it was a time, you know? And I think I had to do Bob Dole because you have to do one political one.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's obscure.
Yeah, it was. It was 95. Half these people weren't born. But it doesn't feel that long because like it occurred when I was already like 26. And so and that was 30 years ago. And so but it's all connected. Like it doesn't feel like it was a lifetime ago, even though in between then and now I got married and had 2 children. But because I was already a grown up when I was doing it, or as much of one, it feels like right there. It's just out of reach. That's wild.
What were the fictional characters that you came in with?
I did this cat burglar who would narrate every one of his actions. I slink through the city on little rat feet. Oh, I am awful. And then I had this whole like routine where I would like open up a thing and then replace it with like a slice of bologna. It was just random nonsense. And then I did this little boy who was forgotten. Like at a sleepover, like all the parents came and picked up all their kids and then I just wasn't picked up. So he was just like very upset, but he was trying to be a good sport about it. Oh, my parents don't talk to me. You know, it was just silly. It was just silly, but really fun. And it was enough to say, "Hey, Todd, it's time to leave Chicago." You know, and shortly thereafter, so that was the summer of '95. I then went to Scotland. We brought the Second City show to Scotland, which was its own thing, because stuff that plays in the States don't necessarily play overseas. We had a song called The Last Superpower, and it was about America being the last superpower and saying like, and it was done through this Boys to Men song. We're the last superpower. And at the end of the thing was, and we'll kick your ass. But it was making fun of, like in America, it was making fun of ourselves going, why do we flex like this? Why wouldn't we spend that money on like feeding people? But we do this. But when you see it overseas, they go, yeah, we know. That's not funny. Like, so we had to scratch that off the running order. But yeah, it was it's stuff. You just got to know your audience, right? Right. But it was fun.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about
There we go.
D.
We're talking about D&D.
Are there any Dungeons and Dragons players in the audience? Oh, holy!
I guess the better question: are there any not Dungeons and Dragons players? There's 3.
A lot of Dungeons and Dragons players here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Any Dungeon Masters in the audience? Oh,
There we go.
gosh. Okay. Keep it to yourselves.
Yeah, you're doomed.
Don't try to take over. We know you're all control freaks. My thing is, Todd, how do you find the time? It is.
I don't have a little one anymore. You have a little one.
I have a little one. Yeah.
That just eats up all the air in the room.
Yeah.
And that's what you want to do when you go home. I'm lucky. Well, my 16-year-old, she's like, hey dad, door closes. Like, but she plays D&D with me, but like she's at that age where she'd just rather be chatting with her friends and doing her thing. So I do have more spare time. My kids are much more autonomous than yours.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that is my hobby, because I used to co-run in improv school and do shows, but selling tickets and paying rent on a space and teaching classes. And I did all of that in LA for 8 years. And I loved doing an improv show once a week. It's just the overhead of all of that to get a chance to improvise with your friends is too much. So D&D very much scratches that itch and it also, with you as well, I think it also scratches a nostalgic itch.
Mm-hmm.
So it operates on many levels. It's a thing we can do with our friends, an excuse to drink whiskey, like you need one, and it brings me to talk about creative juices, to that place where imagination ruled. Like when you're 10 and you're like, I was a Star Wars kid, I was a D&D kid, I was a Raiders kid, like living in imagined worlds for so much of your consumed time. To return to that place with Dungeons and Dragons makes my heart happy.
Yeah.
What
was your first interaction with Dungeons and Dragons? Like,
so I think it was 78, the year after the Rankin and Bass Hobbit came out, and I was all about that. And then 78 was the year that Bakshi's Lord of the Rings came out. So take all that, put that there. My older cousin Tori, my guitar playing, goatee heaven, weed smoking cousin Tori, played a lot of D&D. And so I remember he was old, he was maybe 10 years older than me. So he was in his early 20s. And I went down to his apartment. He was living in Chicago. And we're sitting down, and he takes out this box with these funny dice and paper, and then he takes out a bowl. And he's like, I'm like, what is that? He's like, this is D&D. It was like that moment in Almost Famous where she's handing him all the records, like, these will set you free. I'm like, well, what does that mean? He's like, it means Dungeons and Dragons. I'm like, go on. And he goes, like The Hobbit, which was fresh in my mind. I go, yeah. He goes, but you play in it. So I was trying to like connect, because it wasn't a board game. I was trying to connect what he meant. That literally was my introduction. And he's like, hey, I'll show you how to roll up a character. And he would do that. And it made no sense to me. But a year later, 79, I was in it, like buying the books, buying the minis. My friends and I were all playing just before junior high school, the summer before junior high. And then I started the D&D club in my junior high. But that's my earliest, was 78. How about you?
Oh man. It must have been, let's see. I was born in 73. I discovered it at the age of, I want to say 10 or probably 11.
So yeah, the red box.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. That was a Christmas gift from one year. And I was so elated. I almost broke the box. I was just like, I couldn't believe the.
Had you been hearing about it?
Oh, well, so there was a guy that lived on my street. We were on the same school bus.
Yeah.
And he would sit in the back, and he would walk through people through mini dungeons on the way to school, and just without sheets, right, without anything. And I remember listening to him going, "What the hell are you talking about? What?" And I would just start listening, and then he sort of included me in on, and I was like, "This is the coolest thing ever." It's like writing a fantasy novel together, and it has stakes in real time. Right. And I
don't know where the story's going to go.
Yeah. And I got those books. I was hooked. I mean, I read them cover to cover. And then
Monster Manual.
And then I brought him over to my friend's house, and he was like, "You don't have advanced?" So I was like, "Oh, I got to get the advanced version." Okay. All right.
AD&D. Yes. So I was also, many people know, I was a satanic panic casualties.
Yeah, I remember. I grew up in rural Tennessee.
Yeah.
It
was big.
And
And
we were worried people were sacrificing children
it's
into the
gateway
woods.
to, my favorite comment on this, Gary Gygax said, if I could do real spells, do you think I'd be a game designer? Like, it's crazy. So I was playing pretty, like I said, I started the club in my high school or my junior high. And probably right around the time you started playing, when I was, because I'm a few years older than you, I was entering into high school, and I had gone to a camp, like a Bible camp at the time, and all the counselors were like, "This is the gateway to Satan," and I'm like, "What? Satan?" And I was the kid that used to think Satan peeked at me through the window at night, and I lived on the second floor, and so I just came home and I just gave all my books away. I just got rid of everything. My parents were like, we pay good money for those. But I was like, I'm done. I don't want Satan. Who wants Satan? And then years later, I found eBay. So around 20...
Satan.
I know. Around... It kind of is. For a collector, it's the worst. So around 2012, I just went back on eBay and just started buying all my books back. Because I didn't have anybody to play with, but I just wanted to hold them and look at them and smell them and just get that old feeling back. And then around 2015, I just sort of put out there on the internet to my friends, I'm like, I want to play D&D. And then a guy, Yuri Lowenthal. Do you know Yuri? And
oh yeah, I know Yuri.
You know Yuri.
Yes, of course I know him.
You both have great hair. He does too. So you probably have to fight like Highlander. There could be only one. So Yuri shows up at my door with the new 5th edition starter kit. He goes, "Me too, let's play." And I'm like, "All right, I'm back. We're playing D&D." And then I booked 12 Monkeys and left town for 3 years. So I'm like, delayed. But a guy I met through 12 Monkeys turned out to be a DM, and I've been playing that same game now for 6 years.
The same campaign?
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't run that one, but I'm a player at that table. And then the one that I run has been playing the same campaign for 2 years.
Yeah, I was just before that is when Brandon and my podcast partner and I were on the subway one day, and I was like, you know what I'm getting tired of? I'm getting tired of poker night. He's like, what should we do? And I was like, we had just been having a conversation about Dungeons and Dragons. I was like, why don't we play Dungeons and Dragons? And so we got our friends to go out, get the books. I became the Dungeon Master by default, which was a lot of work. And that was the time of 4th edition.
Oh, super crunchy.
Please don't tell me we have a 4th edition Dungeon Master in our ranks.
Hey, Pathfinder, get out of it. No, I'm kidding.
I was not fond of it. And it was also the first time that I decided, okay, we're going to try playing with a grid.
Oh.
And I did not grow up like that. We did not do the maps, the grids, or the spacing, the move points.
Sure.
We didn't. And I realized quite quickly why we didn't do that. No, it bogs the game down. It gets in the way of the imagination. It's
yeah. I mean, Theater of the Mind is the way a lot of it is played. I again have a collector spirit, and so I love the Dwarven Forge, and I have a table, and I love building the whole miniature setup. And I'm not saying I have a little fog machine. I have a little fog machine. But yeah. I mean, I because I probably only play once.
Do you count move points?
We do, because no, we count spaces. So that I think I want that to, like, if somebody's here and you're here, I'm like, you can't just go, I hit him with my sword because I'm suddenly there. Like, I want to go dude, that's going to take you 2 moves to get there because he's too far. Like, I like, it's the grit that makes the pearl. I like a bit of that. I don't want the game to be easy. I want you to have to work together and I want you to have to figure it out. It's the 10-foot pole, like we had a reason that we had that in our backpacks. I don't know how it fit. Bag of holding. So, but I want them to poke at the world and I want the world to poke back and distance is part of that.
What is the coldest thing you've ever done to a group of players as a dungeon master?
Killed them all in the opening scene.
Did you set out with that intention?
Yeah. But it wasn't the end of the game. But my friend Allison Hayslip was playing at that table, and I think it was a one-shot. And as everybody slowly started dying, they were being attacked by a creature that there was no way they were going to win against. It was like never mind. I don't remember the name, but it looks like a pig and it has little bat wings. It's a demon. Melfeshni, yeah. Yeah.
Was that?
Yep, 4E.
That was 4E guy? You've redeemed yourself, sir.
Yes. Welcome back. So as they start dropping, she just looks at me. She goes, "Do you have somewhere else to be tonight?" But it was all part of a setup to like, then this Ent like rejuvenated them and took them on the mission. I just wanted to see how their faces would react just for my own sadistic pleasure. And Allison's also the one who walked into the green devil mouth in the Tomb of Horrors. And I'm like, "You wanna?" She goes, "Yeah, I want to see what's in there." Because she was a halfling rogue. She crawls in there. I'm like, "You cease to exist." And she goes, "What?" And this is the ongoing campaign. I go, "Yeah, you cease to exist." And then there's this like cold chill over the whole group. Like, what are we going to do now? Allison's one of our favorite players. But I like games that have lethality to them. I like the fact that like we barely ever got past level 4 when we were playing as kids because you just die and roll up a new character. I like that. I like rolling up a character at the table the day you're playing, and you don't decide what you're going to be. You do the rolls in order, and then you go, "Well, I guess I'm really strong. I'll be a barbarian," or "I guess I'm really charismatic. I'll be a sorcerer." Like you let the rolls decide what you are. Just leave it up to chance. Like, and now I just think the game is tilted completely in another direction where it's about hyper customization and subclass, and you spend more time rolling up a character than you do actually playing the game. But that's just me being old man shakes fist at clouds. Yeah.
I always had to deal with, it was a campaign with a group of actors. So it was like,
Oh no.
They would never go in the direction that I was trying to hustle them. Ever. Like, we're going to blow a hole in the wall over here and see what's on the other side. I'm like, you, there's nothing. It's more rock. There's just rock. It doesn't go anywhere.
Rock. What kind of rock is it?
Go down the fucking hall, man.
I licked the rock. What kind of rock is it?
Yes.
Like the bane of the existence of the Dungeon Master is the locked door.
I cast animate. What does the rock say to me? Off.
Oh.
Yeah.
That'll come in handy. Yeah. I mean, the upside for some of that is they, it's like hiding Easter eggs. They don't know that you don't know. So you just go, the room that was over here is now over here. And I planned it that way. Yeah. Yeah. It's just such a deeply rewarding thing. I got my 82-year-old mother to play D&D with me.
Wow.
Yeah. I got Jonathan Frakes to play D&D with me.
Wow.
Yeah, I do charity games, and
I know. I got to do that.
I know.
I want to do this.
You're welcome to. I'm going to do one in December if you're around.
great. I should be
Yep.
around. Yeah.
They we did one. We ended up raising $54,000 in one day, in 4 hours. Because it was to get me a Bronco. It was for no, that was dude. That's yeah. I mean, it's a good game table. I was going to do shameless plugs, but I'll save it to the end. I do. There's a charity called the Pavlov Foundation organization, and they fight childhood cancer. And so they asked me, and I've done a couple marathons for them, and they had asked me, "Is there anything else you want to do? Like anything you want to like a trick thing that you sign and we auction it off?" I'm like, I could run a D&D game. And they're like, "Excuse me?" I said, "No, we could do a live streamed D&D game, and then we have people donate to affect the rolls. Like, I'm going to give Anson an automatic crit for $50." And it's just sort of the fun of, it's like a telethon, basically. But we played D&D, and we had Michelle Hurd and Deborah Ann Wool and Will Wheaton and Frakes. And we raised $54,000 in 4 hours playing D&D.
That's great.
Yeah. And so I think I got Melissa. She's like, "I'll do it." Jess says maybe, but her world is upside down time-wise. And then Gates wants to play. That would be a fun table, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So we'll get into the nitty-gritty of it, but it's just one night of, I'll keep everybody posted, but it's a lot of fun, and it's a great cause. And we auction signed stuff off during. Somebody made a sword. This blacksmith woman made a sword for me, and we auctioned it off for $3,500. A handmade sword.
That's awesome.
It was beautiful. And so I made it the central artifact of the game we were playing. So it was like an in-world thing. It was cool. It's like somebody tells me play D&D for 4 hours and help kids. Like, yeah, I'll do that every night. You know?
Okay. Completely different subject. There's a question that I like to ask my guests. And the question is this: imagine you're at a cocktail party, and it's everybody's sort of like once removed, and your friend, the host, says, "Get to know everybody," and your name tag says, "Todd, ask me about the time that ... What's the story you have prepared to introduce yourself to people?
The story the time that I was left behind in Scotland. Yeah. So I told you earlier that I'd gone to we took Second City to Scotland, and we were staying in Edinburgh. This was for the Fringe Festival. And just packing to leave, and not yet realizing that I had ADHD. I do know it now. But I was all of 26 years old. And so furiously packing, and I had my passport in the sock drawer, and and I'm packing. And I was the last one out the door. And right as the door, we were told to leave the flat keys on the table. Right as I walk out the door, the back door, the door closes behind me. And I'm like, my passport. I don't have my passport. I don't have a key to get back in. Now, the rest of my cast are getting in a van to drive to Glasgow to fly back to Chicago. So I'm running down the stairs going all the way down the stairs. And then I look at the stage manager. I'm like, I don't have my passport. I locked it in the door. He's like, what? He goes, I locked it in the door. He goes, well, see if you can get somebody to let you back in, and maybe we'll jam it in. So now it's like 6 a.m. I'm pushing all the buttons for everybody that's staying in that thing. Somebody answers. Were you the bloke that was swearing all the way down the stairs? Yeah. You're on your own. Wouldn't let me back in the building. So I get in the van. We drive to Glasgow, which is about an hour from Edinburgh. We get to Glasgow. I was hoping that we either had a copy of my passport or whatnot. We didn't. This is a Sunday. So I have to get on the phone with the American consulate in London to try and repatriate myself to get permission to leave the country because I had a plane ticket. So now I'm on the phone, and there's a lovely British gentleman, and I go, I'm explaining to him, and then he goes, I'm sorry, you're going to have to call back Monday through Friday at like 9 to 5. And then now I'm hot. I go, you mean to tell me diplomatic crises can only happen between Monday and Friday, 9 to 5? And then he goes, son, I hardly think this is a diplomatic crisis. Wasn't wrong. So he goes, my advice to you, get a locksmith. Okay. So I basically watched the plane take off and everybody leave. Now I'm like, with my luggage, have to get back in a car because my passport is a city away, and I have to drive back to Edinburgh. And some other friends of mine, because it was Fringe Festival, they were going out of town for a day trip, but they were still staying in Scotland. They left keys and some money for me to let myself back into, like, I could stay at their flat. The next day I could call a locksmith, get in, and I only had like £100 now to my name because the ATM ate my my money card in Scotland. So now I have like £100, and I have like enough to get food, and then a cab back, and then ideally pay a locksmith. So I'm staying in, I think it was the set for Trainspotting. I mean, it was, you could smell the heroin. And I'm like, okay, I'll stay there. And then I get up the next day and I haul all my luggage back to the thing. I call a locksmith. He takes out a piece of cardboard. Pop! Door opens. £40, please. So I give him, and now I just want to be home. I just want to be back in Chicago. I just want to do American things. I'm like, not beautiful country. I'm sick of it. I've been there about a month, and I was just homesick, missed my girlfriend. I just want to get home, and I'm like, okay, I'll go out to eat, and I'll just go to a movie. Just go to a movie. That'll feel normal and American. And I get some food, and the only movie playing was Rob Roy.
Oh, I'm an airplane on the highway, and I feel so strange. Yeah, I'm an airplane on the highway, and I'm so sick of the passing lane. I gotta know if it's true. They say there once were airplanes that in the sky flew. I'm an airplane on the highway.
The Well was produced, recorded, and edited by Brandon Edgens and me, Anson Mount. Theme music by Jonathan Myberg. Extra music for this episode provided by Bob Weissman through an attribution, non-commercial, share-alike 3.0 license. A special thanks this week goes out to the entire crew at DragonCon in Atlanta for inviting us and facilitating this interview. You guys are awesome and professional, even while you're hungover. Also thanks to Todd Stashwick for taking the time to sit down with us. And if you'd like to see Todd's dungeon mastering in action, as well as my third-level human rogue swashbuckling his way through Todd's Celebrity D&D Invitational, you can find a link to that in our show notes at thewellpod.com. That's thewellpod.com. And thanks to you, our listeners. We would not be here doing this without your tremendous support. Don't forget to give us a review wherever you download your podcasts. Have a great week, everyone.